Hey, welcome back to the show. It's so good to have you here. Listen, we have an amazing listener question that we're going to talk about on this episode. But before we do that, I have an equally amazing announcement. I am so thrilled to have Shari Rash join me as co host of Everyone's Talking Money. We're going to have two amazing voices, and I'm so thrilled. Shari has been a guest on the show before. You've probably heard her in a couple of different episodes. So, Shari, oh my gosh, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Are you kidding me? I mean, what you've built with this podcast, your message is so powerful. It's amazing. You've changed lives. So it's an honor to be on the other side of the microphone with you.
It's so fun, I think, to have a conversation and now to have somebody have a conversation with me who is equally a financial expert. I think we both know, and it's something I've echoed on this show for so many years. And I know something that's very close to your heart too is that we both have done this with real people. We've both really been money experts. We hold the expertise behind it. And I think that just brings, I don't know, for anyone listening, I hope it brings like an extra level of not only like relatability, but also just credibility that, when we're tackling like a listener question, like the one we're going to do today in this episode, that we're doing it from a place of knowledge of actually working with real human beings.
Absolutely. Having that real experience, being able to sit across from the desk with someone, sit at someone's kitchen table, feel their emotions when it comes to their money is so powerful. And you definitely have shown that through your decade of speaking in our headphones. And I'm happy that I'm able to also bring that experience to the show.
Okay, so I want to dive into this question because it is a juicy one. And I think our listeners are going to love this. So this one comes from Jen. And Jen says, "Hey, Shauna, I'm 42 and honestly feel like I'm behind in everything: retirement savings, investing, building wealth. I spent my 30s paying off debt and surviving single motherhood. And now I finally have a decent income, but I feel paralyzed about what to do next. Is it too late for me to build real wealth? Where the hell do I even start without feeling completely overwhelmed?" And I love this question, Sherry, because I think that everyone, particularly I know with women, there's this feeling of being behind, of a feeling like, I should know better. Everybody else has got this money thing figured out. What's wrong with me? Like, even if they make a really good income, there's this feeling of, wait, everybody else knows this like magic secret around money except for me. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I love that we chose this question because you can feel the pain or the frustration or the exhaustion through the question. I mean, I could just feel it when I was reading it. So it's so easy, especially in social media and everyone's so out there with everything. It's so easy to feel like you're behind or comparing yourself to others, but we don't know what's behind that post, or we really don't know what's going on when in the four walls of their house. So but it is so easy to fall into that I'm behind, I'm not doing as well, I've done the wrong things, and really just get that head trash in talk in your head.
And I think it's so easy to feel like you have to have everything figured out. There's been so many questions over the years from listeners where it'll start something like, I'm this age, and if I looked at this blog post or if I listened to this podcast episode, I should be, I should have X saved by this particular point in time, or I should have done, these 3 to 5 things. And I think that's the part about personal finance, about money, that really frustrates me because there's so many more, elements that go into this. I mean, I'm not a mom, you are a mom, but I can imagine like when Jen is talking about this idea of surviving single motherhood, like that's a real thing. And that is not even just emotionally exhaustive, but also financially exhaustive. So I feel like this message that we have to have everything figured out is just so, it's just so unfair and it's so unrealistic.
It is. It really is unrealistic and unfair. I mean, no one's situation is the same. And being a single mom, kids are expensive. Everything falls on you. You know, there's no one to turn to go, okay, things are tight this month, or what can we do? Or even just talking things out. You don't even have a sounding board to go, am I doing the right things? So I
Right.
can only imagine how hard it must have been. But you got through, you paid off your debt. You've done really good things. So don't beat yourself up so much. And I think that's important for people when they're going through their money journey to not focus on what you haven't done, focus on what you have done, because that then sets the path for all the awesome things you're going to accomplish in the future.
And I like that too because I don't know about you, but I feel like the messaging around money is so negative. If I watch TV, like commercials are always talking about you're far behind, right? This is how they like sell products. It's how they get us to look up things and buy things. But I feel like when it comes to the emotional part of money, this is the place, like, especially I know as a woman, like I get trapped a lot of time because I don't want to feel more icky about money. I don't want to feel any of this that Jen's talking about. And yet I do, even as a money expert, I'll, watch things. I'm like, gosh, I feel, crappy about that. Or for me, it's January 1st, like literally the day after New Year's, and there are already tax commercials. And I'm just like, please, like, can you give me a day before you start talking about money, for gosh sakes? But I just feel like it's kind of inescapable. Like we can't turn anywhere without, especially these days, about hearing something about money.
It's anything. It's anything that we see out there, our interests or what we watch. And you've already mentioned like the commercials, or I my hobby is decorating. I love interior design. I follow all the interior designers on Instagram, and it makes me feel terrible about myself because I'm like, my house isn't as pretty. I want those moldings. I want those curtains. And it almost, that's what it does. It just feels like that's what society today is, or advertising is today, to make us feel bad. And then when we feel bad, we buy more things to fill that void, but it doesn't
Yeah.
work because something else is going to make us feel bad the next time.
Right. It's just this cycle. I completely agree. And I think this other thing that really popped out for me about what Jen was saying about being behind, and you talked about this a little bit, is like I always push back when people say, I feel like I don't have enough, or I feel like I'm behind. And I say, like, what does that mean? Like, compared to who are you behind? And compared to what? Like, what is enough? What does that actually look like? And I feel like we spend so much time kind of paralyzed in those statements and those fears that we don't think about the other side of it. Well, what is it really? Can I define what enough is? Can I define what being behind is, so then I know when I'm ahead or I'm, tracking, then I know what that is. But I don't know. What do you think? Like, do you find that people just stay stuck in this place of like paralysis?
All the time. When I'm speaking with people, they'll say, "Well, is this enough money? Do I have enough? Can I retire? Is this enough to retire? When can I retire?" And it's like, "Well, right, what is enough compared to what? Compared to who? Where are you getting this number from?" And it's so funny because, and you talk about this all the time, money is so emotional, but we try to take the emotion out of it when it comes to enough or being behind. But that's something you can never quantify, right? It's a
Yeah.
feeling. So when you open up your bank account and you see a number, there's a number that makes your stomach hurt and there's a number that feels good. Or if you open up your retirement investments, there's a number that, oh, I'm doing a good job. Or there is a number that feels like not enough. But again, compared to what? If you're doing all the right things, or if you're putting the plan in place to start doing some of the right things, then you're exactly where you should be. But it's so funny that we try to put a number on being where we should be when it's not a number, it is a feeling.
It's funny when you're saying that. I was talking to a friend the other day, and we all have this, I call it the magic number. The number when we're okay with our bank account, and then the number when we're not okay. Like the minute it dips below that number, then that's when we have those like freak out moments. And for her it was $10,000, which might be a lot for some people and might be a little for other people, right? It's our own kind of individual magic number. And I think what's so interesting about human nature is we all have that. We all have that thing. And so what I kind of pushed back on her was, well, why is this? Like, what is it about this number that suddenly like magically makes you feel safe? Like if you had 900 and $9,900, you wouldn't feel safe. Like that extra $100 does that. And I think for Jen and anyone else listening, I want to push back and challenge you to think about this idea of a magic number. Like, what is yours, and why is it even there, right? And furthermore, I think like, why does it even have to hold power over you? If you're getting paid every month, if you actually went down to $100 or $0, or I don't know what that number is, could you sit in the place of having confidence and like the truth that it's going to get replenished, it's going to get refilled?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone, you're so right. Everyone has that number that when they open up their bank account, they feel good or feel bad. And sometimes there's some logic to it. Well, that's a month's worth of my expenses. I know I have that sitting there. But other times there isn't much logic to it. It's like, well, this just feels good to me. It's like, okay, well, as long as it's reasonable, let's get to that point, build up to it, and then just can keep it pretty consistent. But no, it's going to ebb and flow depending on what's going on in your life that time. But if you have a consistent salary, if your spending is, under control, we shouldn't focus so much on having that certain number instead of now doing the right things with our money.
Okay, so I want to put like both of us on the spot just a minute here. Because I'm all about full transparency here, and just because I'm a money expert doesn't mean that I've done everything correct. Like I know what to do, doesn't mean human nature I do it. But have you ever had a time, and I'll share mine too, so I'm not just putting you on a spot, but have you ever had a time where maybe you dip below your magic number, or you felt like really behind or even like out of control with your money?
It's funny. I have a magic number ish, but I also don't freak out about it because I know everything's okay.
I love that.
So I have, there are some numbers I like better than others,
Right.
of course, but I also don't worry about it because I know there's going to be more coming in. I know I get paid consistently. I know where my income comes from, and I'm in control of my income so I can make more if and when I need to. So I think I almost, because I'm so focused on my clients and finding their numbers and working through them with that, I just have almost a confidence and just say it's everything's okay. Where my husband's the exact opposite. So that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. So I'm everything's okay, everything's great, and he's everything is a disaster at all times. So those are always fun conversations. But there's certainly, especially when I was younger and did not have the disciplines and the principles that I didn't have everyone's talking money to listen to when I was 23, to get all of these foundational ideas from. Yeah, I mean, it would get pretty low. I would say my number got pretty low, and most people would get pretty nervous if they saw what I was working with.
Yeah, I mean, I've shared in my book, and I've shared so many times on this show when I got divorced. Now, gosh, almost about 15 years ago, quite a while ago, actually, that was like the lowest of low. I mean, I had to give up basically all my assets. I lived in California, and there were lots of circumstances that required me to do so. And I also didn't want to have to pay my ex-husband for 10 years. That was something that was like really, that would be very hard for me to do, to write that check every month. So I knew that was in my best interest, but it required me to get, sub my number for a fair amount of time. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. But I think what I learned through that experience was if you can become comfortable with getting below that number, you can really, I believe, retrain your relationship with money. You can really start to make, I think, some of these like transformational shifts because you've gotten to the place that you most feared. And it's like, okay, well, everything is up from here. And I love like your perspective of there's always more, right? We can always make more money. And I think that's a really healthy thing to think about. I think, in context of thinking about this question of really trying to dive in, like, why is Jen feeling so paralyzed? And I think for a lot of us, it is this idea of either I feel out of control or my number is like, I'm not hitting my number. And, like, what do I do from
Mhm.
there?
Absolutely. I think it's getting down to what the root issue is. What is
Yep.
making you feel like out of control? Is it because everything falls on you and you have to answer to yourself and you're responsible for everything and that's, a big load to bear? Or is the issue you're comparing and you're behind and woulda, coulda, shoulda? I made some mistakes when I was younger. Whatever it is, it's kind of let's get down to that first and address it because she's kind of talking about quite a few things. Is it too late for me? I've paid down debt. I haven't invested. I haven't saved. So it's almost like let's take a step backwards and
Yeah.
let's really get down to what the root concern is and address
Hmm.
that first.
Where do you think she goes from there? I mean, because she's talking about wanting to build wealth, and I see like her ability to pay off the debt and her ability, to have a good income and also to get through, some of those like probably early and teenage years of raising a child. I see that is a piece of building wealth that I think a lot of people overlook because I think in our heads we go to like, oh well, I haven't amassed, I don't know, a couple 100,000 in a retirement plan, so I must not be in that wealth building process. Like, how do you think she should think about that?
Getting debt free is one of the most powerful tools you can have. And when you're building your net worth, she has shown that she has the discipline to get out of debt. So that is a way of building your net worth is paying down your debt. So she's shown that she has that discipline. Now we just need to, okay, you're debt free. Now everything's gravy. Obviously you need money to live and your expenses, but now let's just take the money that's been going towards your debt and then we save it now. And now we start to invest it and now we start to grow your net worth in a different way.
I'm almost thinking, and I'm wondering if you're kind of aligned, if we were like giving her this roadmap. I'm kind of thinking her next step is to even think about like what does she even want? Like what is like her vision for her life? Does she want to keep living where she is? Does she want to retire early? All sorts of different factors. I don't know if she likes her job or not. So there's like a lot of different asterisk marks that I think are important to the larger conversation of like what does she do next to build wealth. And I think this is the part that so many people get, I don't know, kind of trapped in because we hear the same things over and over again, right? We hear, a lot of people are picking stocks, and then some people say, no, that's too risky. And then some people say, buy investment property and Airbnb. And then other people say, well, the market's tanking. Why would you do that? And so I think this is where it almost creates that like analysis paralysis, where I think what you're saying, what I love is like focus on what you want, right? And then we can create almost the roadmap from that.
Saving is a lot more fun when you have a goal in mind versus just squirreling money away. because when you squirrel money away, you'll never have enough because you're not saving for a goal. So enough is never enough because we don't know what we're saving for. So if we're starting at the very basics of saving for an emergency fund, we need to determine how much is that, and then we achieve it. So now you know what you're saving for. And then after we have the emergency fund, that may release some of the pressure of, now Jen knows I have enough money saved, put away with lock and key if something bad were to happen, because again, it all falls on me. And then once we achieve that, then saving for the next reason. It could be to buy a house, or it could be to change jobs, or it could be retirement. But again, retirement is like such a big goal, and it
Yeah.
just feels like I'm going to need so much money to save for retirement and I'm so behind. And that's where you kind of get into that negative mind space, where if you just say, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing as much as I can for retirement, and whatever I can do is what I can do at this point, and I just have to thank my future self will thank me for this, and then kind of just move on. Just know you're doing
Yeah.
the right things, and move on. So by breaking up saving into goals or purposes, it helps to feel like you're actually accomplishing something versus just being on the hamster wheel.
What do you think from the perspective of being a parent, right? If she's in her 40s, I know there's always these questions about like, should I be saving? Let me do this. Frog in my throat. Okay, take this over. What do you also think from this perspective? She's, in her 40s, she has a child. And I don't know if you get this question a lot, but I do. Like, should I be saving in my retirement, or should I be saving like for a kid's college fund? Like, um, risk saving for college versus her retirement? Or like, how does somebody at that age think about it with, a child in mind?
So there's a saying, and some people may not like it, but I often see a lot of head nods when I say it, is you can take out loans for college, but you can't take out loans for retirement. And so if I pay for my child's education, I'm never going to be able to retire, then you have to kind of weigh the pros and the cons of that, because we often make the mistake too of us being able to choose our retirement date. Sometimes it's
Right.
chosen for us. If we have a physical job, it could be chosen for us. So I would say, you put the oxygen on yourself and then you go and you help everyone else. So that's my opinion, is save for retirement as much as you can, the best way you can. And then when the college time comes, there are other ways to pay for college. Or if there may be also, you may have a savings account that you're kind of just accumulating, and then that's there. So, and also you don't have to use 529 money to pay for college. That's often, people get very hung up on that, I find. Just because it's not in a 529 doesn't mean you can't use it for college, or vice versa. The only way you can pay for college is through a 529. So you could save and have that money earmarked for a couple of different things as well.
I think even if we look at, we don't know exactly how old her child is, but let's say they're in their teens somewhere, and I don't know, maybe there's 5, 7 years away from college. I almost feel like college is going to look very different in the upcoming years. Like, I think a lot of people are going to be opting out of it. I don't know what AI, like how that's going to transform this space. I think there are just so many unknowns, like particularly if someone's listening and they have a young child, they might, like, college might not even be a thing, right? They might not even go to college. And so I think really putting all your eggs in that basket, what you're saying is, I completely agree. Like, you're limiting your capability of making your vision of your life come to fruition, because you're focusing on an unknown that you can't control. You have no idea what this kid's going to do.
That's right. That's right. And there's more and more schools that do dual enrollment, so the child can graduate high school with college credits, a year or two under their belt, which it does not cost college tuition to do a dual enrollment. So there's so many different options, and the future, I agree, will look a lot different.
Yeah, because if I was a parent and I was doing the calculation of how much it would cost for college, I would probably give myself like a minor, if not major, panic attack.
Yeah, and times that by 4. I'm
Yeah.
doing that times 4. 4 children. Yes, panic attack every day.
Yeah, that's why I love having a dog. I have a dog. She doesn't need to go to college. Maybe some puppy classes, but that's doable. Well, I I want to kind of wrap this up a little bit. I think people talk about like needing this 10-step plan or financial advisor or like $50,000 to start. Like I feel like we're always like moving a goalpost and we're always making it more and more difficult and giving ourselves more reasons why we can't do this thing called building wealth. And I think, what really struck me from Jen is this idea we already talked about that she feels like she's not building wealth. And we already disproved that. Like she's paid off debt. She's doing some of these things that are already, kind of moving her in that, in that, what am I trying to say? um, okay, cut it there. Direction, there's the word. Okay. So she's already doing some of these things to move her in that direction. So, you know, I, I'm wondering like, are there any like small little actions that you think we can kind of ping pong this back and forth? Any small actions that you think she should take to kind of continue going forward from here to move her out of this like paralysis phase?
Yes, I think first, really sitting in why are you feeling this way? Why do you feel paralyzed? Why do you feel like it's too late? And what's really going on there? Because it's not too late. It's never too late, right? It's the saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, the second best time today. So plant the tree today. But yes, it can be overwhelming because there's so many voices and so many things people tell you to do. And so, but where are we missing? Do you have an emergency fund? If no, that's where we're going to start. Do we have, do you have a handle on your spending? Do you know where your money is going? Do you have a plan for it? Then let's start there. So start wherever you're at and just one step at a time and just go down. And then as you're completing those steps and checking those boxes, your confidence is just going to grow.
And I think also like giving yourself permission to start small is really important because we could both hear in Jen's question this idea of I'm not in her head, but this idea that things are so big, that this puzzle of building wealth is so complicated and overwhelming. There's almost an attitude that I hear a lot of times of like, well, just forget it. Because this is just too tough. And I think this comes back to what you were talking about social media. We hear a lot of times in social media people are like, oh, I made $1 million last month or last year and it was so easy. I did one, two, three things. And so we feel like, my gosh, like it's supposed to be easy. Why is it not easy? And so I really think honoring these small steps that you're talking about is so important because it does give you confidence and it starts to rewire your brain and your body that you can be trusted with money, that you've got this under control. And I don't know about you, but if there was like one saying I really wish we could just like remove from the human language, it would be that I'm not good with money because I think we repeat that so many times that we start to believe it and it starts to be passed down generationally. And then that really creates this silo effect where we're not talking about money and we're so afraid and we don't know who to turn to. And I really wish we could have more conversations like this. And certainly why I would love everybody listening, send in a question because there aren't bad questions. We're all have some, I think, variation of Jen's question. We're all out there just trying to figure this out.
Absolutely. And I'm so bad with money or I'm not good with money. And it's like, well, were you ever taught? And the answer is usually no. Were you ever taught what to do? Did anyone ever sit down with you and go, here are the steps to take? And most of the time it's no, but we just expect ourselves to like, it almost be like a sixth sense. Like we should just know what to do with money. But it's like, I don't, everything else in life I had to learn how to do. I mean, you have to practice, make mistakes, everything. But somehow we just expect that we're supposed to know this stuff without ever talking about it. And so that's not a realistic expectation. Just be good with money naturally. So let's just be a little bit easier on ourselves.
I love that. When I first started dating my husband, he was telling me this story that his dad would always say, save your money. And he's like, okay, but for what and where and how much, and it's all these questions that we're left to wonder about. And I think, if anybody listening, if you can relate to where Jen is, I think building wealth, it's not about age, right? It's about action. And that's what we're trying to share with you, is like honoring the emotions behind what you're feeling, but pair them with even a small action step. And an action step could be listening to another episode of the show. I mean, it could be as small as that, right? But I think that really helps. It helps you get out of that place of feeling stuck. Even if you feel like the action is so incredibly tiny, it could literally just be looking at your bank statement today. Like that could be the action.
Yes. Knowing what you have, knowing what you're working with, and then understanding where your money is going, I think is so important, and it's often overlooked. You should be looking at your bank account every day. But the problem is, though, we usually don't like the number. It doesn't make us feel good. So we're not going to look at it.
Number, yeah.
Back to the magic number. So it's like all these little steps that we just need to kind of think about and figure out and address them. And then once it's usually the little things that keep us from doing the big things. But what's funny is that it feels really, really good to get those little things done. And it's an accomplishment, because then we can move on to bigger and better.
Ooh, I like that. All right, Jen, this was an amazing question. Thank you so much for sending it in. I'm sure that everybody listening can really resonate with at least some part of the story, and certainly this idea of really wanting to build wealth, which is something that you, Shari, and I were both here to really help people through this maze of all of these questions that are just so tough to answer, and people don't know where to turn to. So on that note, again, I want to say welcome to Everyone's Talking Money. I'm just so thrilled to have you on the podcast, and I just hope everybody is ready for what they're in store for. Just more amazing content, in your voice, and your vision and purpose around money is just so aligned of this show. And I'm so thrilled that you're here with us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and I cannot wait to create awesome content with you, Shauna, and get the message out. And it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, we are looking forward to even more listener questions coming up. And more than that, we hope to see you back here real soon. We'll be back with a new episode in just a few days.